Good evening and welcome to our Town Council workshop for April 27th to set our meeting for our May council meeting. Tonight, before we move into our items for discussion, I'm going to ask Steve Sullivan to do our prayer. And Chief Bill, will you lead us in our pledge? Great. If you'll stand with us, please.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for today. We ask that you continue to bless our town. Lord, be with the council tonight and the directors and town manager and attorney here, Lord, that the decisions we make would be pleasing in your sight, Lord, and that we would continue to have the best interest of the town as a whole at heart, Lord. We ask that you bless the families of Smyrna and the members of our council that will move forward in your light. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve and Chief. Before we move into our items for discussion tonight, we have a pretty exciting proclamation. And Miss Amber, I'm going to let you read the proclamation for Woodfin Funeral Chapel's 130th year in business. So, Amber?
Yes, ma'am. Whereas the Town of Smyrna Council takes great pride in joining the many family members, co-workers, friends, and citizens of the Smyrna community in congratulating Woodfin Funeral Chapels on 130 years in business. And whereas Woodfin Funeral Chapels have operated as an independent, fifth-generation, family-owned business since 1893 and proudly serve Rutherford and surrounding counties with 2 modern locations. And whereas Woodfin Funeral Chapels offers meaningful and affordable services tailored to the unique needs of all faiths and cultures in order to provide family, friends, and neighbors with a sense of closure and community. And whereas Woodfin Funeral Chapels prides itself on maintaining the highest ethical standards of family service, therefore affording an invitation-only membership into selected independent funeral homes, a worldwide professional association of independent, locally owned funeral homes focused on high standards. And whereas Woodfin Funeral Chapels owns and operates Rutherford County's only on-site crematory at their Murfreesboro location, offering peace of mind that other providers are not able to offer. Get it together, Amber. Excuse me. Whereas the Town of Smyrna is especially grateful for Woodfin's Smyrna location, which has faithfully served the Smyrna community for decades. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Mary Esther Reed, on behalf of the Town of Smyrna, hereby encourage all citizens to join in celebration of this most distinguished occasion and extend our most sincere best wishes for Woodfin Funeral Chapels in the future. Proclaim this the 27th day of April, 2023.
Thank you, Miss Amber. If you all would like to all come forward. As nice as y'all all look, we'd hate for y'all not to get on TV tonight. So first of all, we just want to say congratulations and thank you for being a part of our community for so many years. I know you all see people in probably some of their worst times, and I think you make that as easy of a process as that can be had. And I think you all have been part of so many memories that have taken part in Smyrna. You know, whether it's doing ads in the back of annuals or helping to support ball teams or all of the things that small businesses do to help support a community. So we appreciate how you all are involved in our community and everything that you've done. So I'm going to let Chief Bill do his thing in making his picture. So let me yeah, so we all have to, and I'm going, here we go.
Could we have 3 of you come on this side as well?
And you're still here for 1:30.
Thank Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna let you introduce your team, and then if you want to say anything. Okay. You'll be, absolutely. And I see we both kind of have the same taste in glasses, which, yes.
Thank you so much. Well, we have Josh Brown, who's one of Woodfin Chapel's managers, Bitsy Russell, Valley Reed, who is from Smyrna, Don Mobbs, Ronnie Gandy, who's been with Woodfin Chapel for 40-plus years. We actually grew up together. And my husband, David Parsons. So I just have a few words, but I'm Shannon Woodfin Parsons, and on behalf of my family and the staff of Woodfin Chapel, thank you, Mayor, thank you, Brian, thank you all the good people of Smyrna for honoring us this evening. 130 years. Dang, I look good for 130. I can't believe I'm the 5th generation funeral directors in our family, and it looks like to me there probably will be a 6th. We have 3 grandchildren of Bubba Woodfins who are working at the chapel in Murfreesboro now while attending school. So, there's a good possibility. So just a brief history lesson. In 1893, we started in a one-room building in Beech Grove. After a big flood, we moved to the town square in Murfreesboro around the 1900s. It was named L.R. Jacobs Furniture and Undertakers. Back then, a lot of the funeral directors, undertakers, were in the furniture business as well because they handmade the coffins. Then after a tornado in 1913, we moved again to Elks Club, Elks Lodge, now Milano's, which is on College Street. Then in 1949, my grandfather built Woodfin Memorial Chapel in memory of his father, my great-grandfather, Woodfin Memorial Chapel, which stood on the corner of Tennessee Boulevard and Greenland Drive. And that brings us to present day. After a fire in 1999 in Murfreesboro, we relocated and rebuilt on New Las Casas Pike. It was built in memory of my grandparents, John T. and Virginia Black Woodfin. So there we go. That's 130 years in a nutshell, really, really fast. But now it's time to talk about Smyrna. And in 1945, my family, 54, sorry, dyslexic, my family recognized that there was a need for our services in the northern part of the county, Smyrna. So we opened our doors in 1954, which many refer to it as the chapel beside the road due to the close proximity of Highway 41. I wish my dad were here to celebrate with us tonight. I'd give anything. He was an amazing man who I have learned so much from. It was an incredible gift to be able to work with him for the last 20 years before he died in 2020. I've never known anyone who loved people as much as he did and pretty much dedicated his life to serving others. If Dad were here tonight, he would say, it's been a true honor and it's been a privilege to serve this great community. On behalf of my family and staff of Woodfin Chapel, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to celebrate 130 years in our family business. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you so much, and we look forward to another 130 years. I'm sure you'll look just as good then as you do now. So, but your family goes a long way back with my family, and you know, there's not many businesses in town now that can say that they've been in business as long as yours. So, we appreciate your continued support and look forward to it in the future. Thank you all. Thanks.
Mayor, I was gonna say, Shannon looks really good, but we went to high school together, so I'm not sure what water she was drinking. I didn't get any of that. But I also wanted to point out that, you know, as this proclamation came forward for us to put together, I want to recognize H.G. Cole is actually our council member that brought that forward. And I just want to make sure he was recognized for recognizing your business and the wonderful job y'all do.
All of you.
Y'all have always done a good job for my family, and it's appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, you all. Y'all are welcome to stay for the entire meeting if you'd like to. We'd love to have you, but we understand if you have other engagements. We'll now
See you,
move
David.
into our items for discussion. First is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with, is it Hellas Construction? Yes, ma'am. Hellas Construction Incorporated to resurface the tennis courts at Lee Victory Recreation Park. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mayor.
Great.
Council. We've done quite a bit of work, really research on how to repair the courts up at Lee Vickery Park. We've got 6 courts up there. 2 of them were built in '07, but the other ones were built 30 years ago. So between the cracking of the asphalt and some of the other things, we kind of did some research and worked through our Sourcewell purchasing co-op with Hellas Construction. And I know Jason King has worked on the legal part of the contract with us to get that right. It's about 40,000 square feet of asphalt that'll be repaired and then seal coated and color coated with Hellas, and they'll have to sub out the paving. So basically, to keep it from cracking again or prevent it longer, you kind of build like a glass grid over the existing asphalt, just kind of create a barrier between the old courts and the new courts. So when I was looking at that, there was a lot of good things about the existing courts, so we decided just to pave over what we have up there instead of tearing that out, just because the grade is so good. It was built right when it was built, and I hated to take a chance on that. So we're recommending a contract with Hellas Construction to do that work.
Questions for Mike on this? Seeing none, we will put it on our agenda.
Thank you,
Item
ma'am.
2 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the contract and addendum with SEC for the Meadowbrook project. Hey, Mike.
How are you?
Great.
Good. So we have been monitoring Meadowbrook for several years now. It is nearing the time where we're either going to have to upgrade Meadowbrook or go gravity to the plant. So what this is to get SEC involved. As far as the contours, it shows that it can be gravity to the plant, but we need to confirm that before we move forward and do anything further on this project. And this is to get SEC to come in and they will LiDAR this, which is light detection and ranging. So basically they'll fly a drone over it with lasers and be able to build profiles and stuff like that to show us whether or not this will actually work to gravity it to the plant.
Questions for Mike? Okay, we'll add that to the budget, to the next, I've got budget on the mind, don't I? The agenda for the council meeting, and move on to item 3, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute contracts with eSource and Rye Engineering for phases 1, 2, and 3 of the water loss program.
Yes, ma'am. So we have been monitoring and working on water loss for several years now. The comptroller has basically changed the way they look at water loss. So water loss is as a % of revenue with the comptroller, whereas physical loss in the field is what we most typically track. So we met with these 2 companies. eSource, we feel like, is better equipped to handle the data analysis, the comptroller part, basically, billing stuff, anything like that. And Rye Engineering would be better for the field stuff, which are physical leaks. So we want to do a combination of these 2 folks to get a good plan in place and get moving forward and get control of this right here.
Questions for Mike on this? Okay. Move on to item 4, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with CMS Uniforms and Equipment Incorporated relative to the fire department uniforms. Hey, Chief.
Mayor, council, I have an annual bid I brought to you this evening. We went out to bid, CMS was the low bidder for our uniforms, and I would ask permission for the council to give the mayor permission to sign that contract.
Questions for Chief on this? Chief, I have to tell you, I was in another community, I won't say which community, and there were some firemen that walked in. Their shirt tails were untucked. They did not have the professional look that every time you see our firemen, they have. And I think that makes a difference. I mean, they may be able to do the same job, but when you see somebody that looks professional, it just makes you think they're going to do a better job. And as they walked away, I thought, "Phew, I sure am glad when I see somebody walk in a restaurant that's with our fire department. They're always neatly dressed. You know what I mean? They look professional. So I appreciate what you and your department do in the way that you carry yourself, as well as the rest of our staff. But when I saw them, it made me think of your guys, so I
Thank you,
appreciate
ma'am.
that. Item 5, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Ed M. Feld Equipment Corporation and Company Incorporated for fire department bunker boots and turnout suspenders.
Again, this is an annual, annual contract, and would like to ask the council to give the mayor permission to sign the contract.
Questions for Chief on this one? Okay. Item 6, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with North Alabama Fire Equipment Company Incorporated for turnout coats, turnout pants, and fire hoods.
Again, an annual bid, and I'm asking permission from council to give the mayor permission to sign the contract.
Questions on this one? Okay. Item 7 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Safe Industries for fire department gloves and helmets.
Again, annual contract, and I'm asking the council to give the mayor permission to sign the contract, and this is my last one for tonight.
Questions for Chief on this one? I guess if we don't approve your contract, your boys are going to be naked, aren't they?
We won't worry about our shirt tails hanging out, will we?
I guess not. Okay.
I'm gonna stop right there, too.
Questions for Chief on this?
Calm down, Mr. Clerk. We're not going any further.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract for a 3D laser scanner kit at the police department. Chief, how are you?
Mayor, council, so this piece of equipment is pretty extraordinary. It's being purchased off a grant, so it's free in a way, which is even better. But the scanner is actually used for fatalities and crime scenes where it'll actually produce a 3D image of the scene itself. You actually put the piece of equipment down in the scene you want to scan, it scans the entire area. And it's remarkable what its performance can do as far as when the case is presented in court or in a trial. It lays it all out. It's a representation of the whole scene, and it eliminates any kind of sketching or anything anyone would have to do, or any other kind of equipment you'd have to use to scan a scene in a major incident like a fatality, large crime scene, or a homicide.
So this can do like roadside, like fatalities, like it can do
Yes.
that as well as like inside of a building?
Yes, yes.
Pretty
You
impressive.
put it wherever you want it. It scans the entire area, and you have it all done for you.
How long does it take to do its job?
Not long.
Not long.
Very
So,
short period of
yeah,
time.
That's really cool.
Have you not ever watched Crime 360?
I have, but
That piece of equipment,
yeah, but
super cool.
you know what you see on TV is not always reality, right?
Well, that one is, it one's reality TV.
Yeah, where I was going
So-
was, when we have a fatality, often, the road's closed for some period of time for investigations, et cetera. So that's where I was going. Is this gonna speed up that process or slow it down, right?
Yes, definitely speeds it up.
Yeah.
And this is from the Violent Crime Grant from the state of Tennessee. We're also making some other purchases from that grant, but the grant's really a great asset, and we can use it to purchase equipment like this where the town doesn't have to spend the money for it.
Yeah, excellent.
Questions for Chief? Okay. Item 9, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract for audit services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Rex, did we not just get done with
I
this?
was just thinking that, it just seems like time's flying.
It does.
When you're having fun.
That's right.
Mayor and council, the staff is recommending the independent certified public accounting firm of Blankenship CPA Group to perform the annual audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. They've been approved by the Comptroller of the Treasury to audit municipalities in the state of Tennessee. The estimated fee is $39,500 plus $1,000 for crosswalk work. However, there will be additional costs relative to single audit, new construction costs, pension, grants, bond projects, and new GASB implementations. The crosswalk work is the comptroller's requirement for a standardized set of chart of accounts. Instead of us having to do that, we will consolidate our chart of accounts into the standardized account, and that way comply with the comptroller's requirement. And that's new this year. Everybody has to follow that.
Questions for Rex?
Is this entirely new company for us?
We had them last year,
We did.
yes.
Okay, we'll put that, sorry, go ahead.
I'll do that quick. So we're taking what our current chart of accounts looks like, and we're having to put it into what the state's chart looks like, and so that's what the crosswalk means.
Yes, ma'am. We'll retain our chart of accounts, but it'll have to be consolidated into what the comptroller requires.
Okay. So once we do it this time, will it be
Forevermore,
in the?
we'll have to do
Yes,
this.
that, or we'll have to do it every year?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I thought once we did it this time, it would be ready for next year. No.
The numbers change. that's
Okay.
all.
Okay, other questions for Rex? Okay, item 10, approval of the terms of and authorization for the Smyrna Police Department to adopt a new standing operating procedure for promotions.
Yes, Mayor, I'll take it.
Jeff's taking it, okay?
First of all, I'll just point out that for some reason this time we noticed that the red line was not converting when we put it into agenda quick, but you won't have this in front of you, but the only thing that this SOP mainly is changing is currently there's a 60-day announcement period for promotions within the police department. They found that this has led to too much time going in between where they're without supervisors when they need it. So we're just taking that down to a 21-day announcement that they're taking applications for those positions. So that's what this will do.
Okay. Questions for Jeff on this? Okay, then we'll put that on the agenda and move on to item 11, which is some of our second reading stuff. Consideration of an ordinance amending the town's municipal code, Title 12, Building Utility, et cetera, Codes, Chapter 9, Codes Enforcement and Inspection Division, Section 12-901-904 and 12-1002-1014, and this is a second reading. Jason?
Good evening. How are you all tonight?
Great.
Good to be with you. I believe Town Attorney Jeff Peach handled this on the first reading and last workshop, but I just wanted to attend today since I had worked on these amendments in detail with Todd Spearman, Assistant Town Manager, and see if there's any questions council or the mayor may have. Basically, we just made some targeted amendments to the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals in Chapter 10. Took out a provision in Chapter 9 that had the town planner involved a little more and put it all under the town manager. Rules of decision for the board were kind of updated and clarified, as well as the codes that are involved. That would basically be under the auspices of the building official. The building official's decision could be, the interpretation or decision could be appealed, and then, of course, you've got provisions in there for requests for a variance, and those rules of decision are very similar to what you'd have in the BZA context. So if there's any questions, no council's considered this already, but I'm here if I can answer anything for you.
Questions for Jason? Nothing's changed?
No, ma'am.
Since first, okay. Okay, then we'll move on to item 12, which is consideration of an ordinance amending municipal code Title 14, Zoning and Land Use Control, Chapter 2, Planning Department, Sections 14-201 and 14-202, and this also is a second reading.
Yes, Mayor Council, this basically will just complement what Jason just went over, which clarifies that the town planner is not over codes enforcement.
Okay. Questions for Jeff? Nothing's changed on this either since first reading?
Nothing's
Nothing's
changed.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good. Okay, we'll move on to item 13, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, parcel 75.00 to be rezoned from C2 to PCD, requested by Chris Sloven. The property requested to be rezoned contains 1.63 acres and is located on Rock Springs Road and Austin Lee Drive, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a rezoning request. Is at the northwest corner of Rock Springs Road and Austin Lee Drive. This does lie within our Sam Ridley corridor character area, and this would be consistent with our land use plan. Surrounding zoning is a mix of C2 and C4. This proposed PCD is to allow an automobile rental business with a detached car wash for use by that business only. Would not be open to the general public. Proposed office is 1,643 square feet with an attached canopy, and the car wash is 1,213 square feet with an attached canopy. Access would be from Rock Springs Road as well as the private access drive to the rear. The proposed buildings do meet our design review requirements. The Planning Commission did review this request and recommended approval 4-4, 1 against, with 3 conditions. 1, that the allowed use is an automobile rental company where the rentals are on a temporary basis, as well as a car wash for use by that business only. The roll-up doors shown on the car wash are required to be a clear plexiglass or similar material and not metal as shown, and landscape buffering will be required around the car wash building. With those conditions, staff would recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? We had quite a bit of discussion about it last meeting.
There won't be fencing around it, right, will there?
There will not be any fencing, I
Okay.
suppose, no.
Other questions? Okay, we'll move it forward for second reading. And item 14 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 18, part of parcel 10.00, to go from C2 to PUD, requested by Gary Vogren. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 40.94 acres and is located on Sam Ridley Parkway West and Motlow College Boulevard, and this is a second reading.
Yes, this is at the northeast corner of Sam Ridley and Motlow Boulevard. Again, it is within our Sam Ridley corridor character area with our land use plan, so it would be consistent with our land use plan. Surrounding zoning is a mixture of C2 in town and agriculture in Laverne. This proposed PUD is for a mixed-use development to allow for various different uses, up to 280,400 square feet of retail restaurant space, up to 245,000 square feet of office, up to 2 hotels with 120 rooms each, and up to 75 for-sale residential condominium units. There will be some flexibility in those uses so that they might flex based on the market, but those will be the maximum amount allowed in each category. It does propose to utilize shared parking, as many of the uses do have some offsetting peak parking needs. Access would be from Sam Ridley Parkway, as well as Motlow College Boulevard in 3 different locations. There would be amenities provided for the residential uses, which do meet the town requirements, and there would also be pedestrian connectivity to the residential areas to the west along Jenny Lane, as well as to Motlow State Community College. The signage plan is somewhat incomplete, and so they may have to come back with an amendment depending on what they end up doing for their signage plan. They are limiting, there would not be any pole signs within this development at all. A traffic study was submitted which recommends several improvements, including signalization of the proposed access to Sam Ridley Parkway, extending left turn lanes, construction of additional lanes within Sam Ridley Parkway, as well as some other improvements. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this unanimously, and staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin?
My only question would be related to the signalization you just mentioned. It's pretty close to Motlow, so I assume TDOT would have to approve that and
Yes.
ensure that we're meeting whatever requirements they have,
The
right?
TDOT, of course, TDOT's been pretty involved with some plans for the improvements to the intersection of Lowry and Sam Ridley Parkway. And so this is all going to have to be worked together with those improvements as well. So that certainly they'll be involved in that.
We've actually had a meeting with TDOT on this already, and some improvements that the development's bringing to the table, adding a lane, basically from the bridge all the way down to Motlow. They've given us indications that they're going to honor whatever our request is as far as that light. It will be outside the scope, a small amount of what their typical is, but we think with the additional lane and having it as a through lane, we'll be able to move the traffic through those 3 lanes to get to the other red light as it condenses back. So right now, it's in our hands to make that consideration.
Yeah, I mean, comparatively, I think it's probably similar to Stonecrest and Potomac now, about the same distance probably.
Yeah, and the biggest concern is for us is and Tom and Charles and I have had long conversations about this. If you don't put the light there and you have traffic going across the median to go back towards the town center or coming out, making that right going down Sam Ridley, it's going to get pretty dangerous. It'll be, to me, it's very typical of what we saw the intersection there at Kroger going across to the TJ Maxx, and it was almost like a game of Frogger, those cars. And that was our number one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Charles, that was the number one intersection at one time for accidents. I just really hope we can figure out a way to keep this from becoming that, because I think you're going to get some traffic influx. Plus, you'll have, there will be exits out of the development over onto Motlow College Drive to come down to that light. So there'll be a couple of different ways to get out, but my consideration right now is the safest way we can move that traffic through there.
I mean, my personal preference would be either a light or a closed median, right? The improvements that we saw on Sam Ridley by closing those left turns has been so large that I don't think we should ever put those left turns on the other side of Sam Ridley. And even if the traffic is light enough, we think it could take it, we're just gonna have to come back and close them at some point anyway, so it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
So this median will not be opened up?
Yes, it will.
It's going to have a light.
But it'll
Yeah,
be signalized.
they're approving the median cut with or without the light as far as TDOT's concerned, and that's going to be very important to the tenants in here to get that median cut. That way they have access in and out. I think our consideration right now is we're probably going to be very supportive of putting that light there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is if the median's gonna be open, then I wouldn't want it without the light.
I agree 100%.
Well, and I think with ITS on board, you know, the synchronization will go a long way to alleviate any potential backups.
Well, and that's what we talked about is that, and I don't want to speak for Tom and Charles if y'all want to come to the microphone and speak, but that was one of the things we talked about. It's going to be very important to get the synchronization of that light and the Motlow light working together. And we've done that. We did that on Old Nashville Highway with a couple of those lights at the new intersection. So, you know, based on the size of this project and what we're hearing is the possibility of what that project's going to bring as far as different level of retail and stuff for the community. It's going to be a destination. There's going to be traffic in there. So we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to make it as safe as possible.
Other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to item 15, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28L Group C, parcel 16.00 to go from R2 to C4. It's requested by Phyllis Campbell. The property requested to be rezoned contains 1.29 acres and is located at 106 Wright Street. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a rezoning request. It's for a property about 300 feet west of the intersection with Front Street. They're on Wright Street. This is our depot district character area, so certainly would encourage a mixture of uses that are kind of more urban in lot sizes and setbacks. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R2 and C1. There is not adequate fire flow at this location currently for commercial development, so no commercial use would be allowed until that fire flow issue is resolved. That will be resolved as part of the projects that the town is currently planning for that downtown area with some water line improvements in there. So that's still coming, but it is not there today. It wouldn't be there for a little while. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 4-4 and 1 against. Staff would also recommend approval.
The last time that we talked about this, Did we leave it that you were gonna see if they were gonna be, if they would be willing to go into the
We
historical?
did.
And,
Actually, I did not hear back from Ms. Campbell until late this afternoon, and she was not too keen on the idea of historic zoning, being in the historic district. That was her opinion, so I did get that feedback from her. Like, it was very late this afternoon.
Did she say what her concern was with not wanting to be a part of it?
The only thing she talked about is we, of course, she was on the property when we just considered that before, probably 15 years ago, maybe not quite 15. And she said I was opposed to it then. I even got 300 people signing a petition opposing it, and so her feelings haven't changed.
Okay.
So she didn't give me any specific reasoning, that's just how she put it.
Okay.
so council, knowing that, does that change anything for you all?
We didn't vote on it, right?
And it was deferred.
That's right.
On first
So,
reading, yes.
It helps me make a decision, but it didn't really change my opinion.
Okay. Anything else from council? Questions?
So what we talked about was extending the historic zoning. How far did we come to any kind of decision on what we were thinking would, how to
We did
extend that?
not, no.
Okay.
In the past, when we looked at it before, we were looking at going down, I believe, as far as Union Springs on this side, and then over,
We're going all the way down to
I
Ross
think-
Drive to the
I think Ross or Highland over
Antebellum House
there.
back there.
Yeah.
But we were
Was-
gonna
and
send
as
that
far-
to historic zone, I mean, was it to planning or historic zoning first?
It would have to go to
Put it on the
historic
look
zoning first,
Okay.
right. So,
at- To look at that?
Yeah, that's what we discussed, was expanding it possibly much larger, all the way down Division possibly, but send that back to historic zoning
Let them look at it.
and let them look at it and make their
Yeah.
recommendations, which would go to planning and then come back to us, right? That was the conversation. I was hopeful that she would, since she's kind of ahead of that, right? I was hopeful she would be willing to let us include that now, so.
You know, one of the things I talked about last time is I felt like that the historic zoning area had much more validity today with the things which have occurred down there as opposed to what it was like when we tried to expand it before. And, you know, maybe we should ask the historic zoning to bring us a recommendation about expanding, you know, and see how far they see it's feasible to go, because there's, you know, spots on the other side of Lowry Street that they may want to even go to back there.
You're right. Yeah, I was thinking about some of the houses on Oak and some of those other streets over there that definitely are the same character as the homes on the other side.
yeah, and we did expand it to the Cheney Tucker house over on Oak Street at that owner's request
Yeah.
a few years ago. It's just that one house is all that's in
Right.
it.
So.
Because because the owner at that time understood the significance of
Right.
what it meant.
Right.
And I think that's what set it apart. And
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this particular piece of property, what concerns me is C4 is, it's not the most wide open commercial, but there's a lot of options in there. And without historic zoning overlay, lots of things could happen. That whole building could be tore down, they could build, you know, something that doesn't fit, right? And that's my concern with just a blanket zoning at this point.
So are we wanting Kevin to send back to plan, we'll put this on the agenda, put item 15 on the agenda, but in addition to that, are we wanting the Historic Zoning Commission to look at expanding, the possibility of expanding the historic zoning district overlay?
Yes.
And bring back a recommendation?
Sure. Yeah, of course, that would come
It would go to them first, and they would.
Then planning.
And then it would come to planning commission and proceed basically as a typical rezoning request at that point, but certainly it has to start with them.
At least
Certainly.
get it started.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Rex is big time. Consideration.
I thought Sarah would be presenting tonight.
No? What would you have done if he was sick?
I would have died.
At least you were honest.
She would be sick too.
Okay, so item 16, consideration of an ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Okay, the ordinance and budget for fiscal year 23 and 24 submitted for your consideration. I've attached a changes from retreat to first read spreadsheet for your convenience. It details the budget changes from what was presented at the retreat and some minor payroll adjustments from Human Resources Department, and a couple of other minor adjustments are included also. At this point, I'd like to do an overview. So this is for fiscal year 2024. The budget process started in November of 2022. The town manager, town attorney, and assistant town managers discussed personnel, line items, travel, and capital project requests. We had lengthy meetings with department heads to go over their requests. The budget was prepared based on economic conditions in late 2022 and early 2023. I think it's always good for us to look at the property tax rate in Rutherford County. This year, we're recommending the town adopt the previous year's tax rate, so therefore no change in the rate. And there's the rates in order from low to high in the county. You can see there that Smyrna is above Eagleville and just below Laverne and Murfreesboro, and of course, Rutherford County, that's a county government, they offer a different level of services. So in this budget for employees, we have merit and bonus increases from the employee evaluations that are included. Longevity is included in this budget. And a market adjustment of 1.5% is included in the budget. At this point, we'll start in on our, what I like to call our minor funds. They, not a whole lot of money. Most of these are restricted as far as the types of expenditures that you can, that are allowable to make. We have a description there from the first column, and then we have actual audited numbers from 22. We have 23 estimated numbers, which are mathematical estimates determined by the finance department. And what I want to focus in tonight on all these funds is the recommended column for 24, the budget year. State Street revenues are from gas tax revenues. And our revenues are not growing a whole lot in State Street aid. Matter of fact, our expenditures have kind of outpaced the revenue, and with this budget that we are presenting to you, the ending fund balance at the end of 24 will be $264,259. So we'll have to, the general fund will have to subsidize some of these expenditures going forward. Drug fund, it's a very small fund for the town. Revenues at 88,000, expenditures at 65,800, operating income 22, and we are building up a little bit of a fund balance in there. We're anticipating the ending fund balance to be $493,409. Impact fee fund, we have the revenues coming in, 3.8 million. Impact fee expenditures, 5.6. And then again, this is a fund where we save up money and then we wind up spending the money out of there. So in 24, we've got a deficit of $1.7 million. And we anticipate an ending fund balance of $4.3 million. And of course, those impact fees are for public safety, which is fire and police. We anticipate their budget to be their fund balance to be $1.7 million. Parks to wind up at $571,000, and roads to just a little over $2 million. Now we're headed to the stormwater fund, and we're not anticipating any new personnel for next year. The budget revenues is $1.9 million, expenditures $1.7. That leaves us $157,000 for operating income. And then you'll see where we have transfer to capital projects of $1.1 million for several items to be expended there. And that still leaves us with a really nice ending fund balance of $2.4 million. The biggest item that's in the capital projects for the stormwater fund is $600,000 for sinkholes, culvert replacements, and ditch excavations. In the stormwater, infrastructure expenditures and improvements are 54%, equipment 46%. Insurance fund, we're self-funded insurance company that the town collects revenues from the funds that have employees, and the expenses are paid out in claims. We anticipate on having a $619,000 surplus in 2024, and that would leave us with an ending fund balance of $4.1 million. And the insurance fund, we have to submit our audit report to them, and they review the numbers each year to determine whether we can continue to be self-funded or not, and we're in very good shape there. Debt service fund, that's the fund where it shows the debt that will be paid in 2024. It's an in and an out. We have money transferred in here from the general fund and from the impact fee fund to pay for the principal and interest of bond issues, primarily bond issues. And we'll wind up with an ending fund balance of $1.2 billion. And that's a note with the airport authority. Capital projects is another fund that we collect money in, and then we make purchases of high dollar, non-reoccurring expenses. And we've saved up money, and now we're spending some. We're anticipating a deficit of $10.4 million, but we've anticipate winding up with an ending fund balance of $21.2 million. This is a slide of capital project funding summary by departments in 2024. We have departments in the far left column, and then we've recommended $30.7 million in capital projects for next year. $10 million to be paid out of the general fund current year revenues. The drug fund has a small expenditure of $10,600. Impact fees at $4.2 million, and grants at $5.9 million, and the savings that we've accumulated in capital projects of $10.4 million. Capital projects funding source, if you add up grants at 19% and impact fees at 14%, that gives us 33% of our capital projects that will be paid from non-taxpayer money financing. This is a slide I show every year. It shows how we spent our money on capital projects over the last 10 years. Highways and streets, 56%. General government, 4%. Public safety, 10%. Of course, with public safety, they're the highest budgeted operating funds that we have, but not so much in capital projects, although when we get into the 5-year plan, you'll see where we're fixing to spend another $15.9 million for police and fire. Recreation at 25%.
I was just fixing to say, this doesn't include 23, because those numbers are going to change things drastically.
Drastically. And then stormwater at 5%. Into the natural gas fund, we're asking for the minimum residential bill to be increased by $1.50 each month, and the minimum commercial bill be increased by $28 each month. We're still substantially lower than competitive natural gas providers. No new personnel requested in the natural gas fund. Natural gas is probably the hardest fund we have to try to budget for because it's so dependent on the weather. So we basically just anticipate a mild winter, which puts us into a break-even situation. We're budgeting in the revenue $18.3 million, and expenses $18.3 for a $25,000 operating income, non-operating revenues of $52,000. So you can see that's really a break-even situation, and we're really kind of overdue for a cold winter to kind of put us back into a good, build up our reserves a little bit. Major sources of revenue, residential, $4.7 million, commercial, $7.1, industrial, which is, we only have one industrial customer, and that's Nissan. And those constitute 98.5% of the whole gas revenue budget. Natural gas expenditures by type, natural gas for resale, cost of gas is 70%. If you keep up with natural gas at all, you know the cost of gas rose substantially last year. And we have depreciation, operations and maintenance, and personnel. Personnel is 9%, and capital is at 4%. We're not doing a whole lot in the way of capital. But capital projects that we are funding is continuing construction contract for gas mains and services of $500,000. These extensions of the gas mains will be revenue producers in future years. And we're also doing some work at Fall Creek Basin for $150,000. Natural gas projects by function, infrastructure and improvements is 95% of the capital projects. Equipment is 13%. Now we're headed to the water and sewer fund. We're recommending a 5% increase in the water rates and a 5% increase in the sewer rates. The average increase for a residential customer equals $2.50 a month. Water at $1.03 and sewer at $1.47. No new personnel is being requested in the water and sewer fund. Operating revenue at $23.8 million. Operating expenses at $19.9, which leaves us at a $3.8 million operating income. And we're looking at non-operating revenues of $3.1 million, which majority of that is a TDEC grant of $3.9 million. So you can see we're in good shape in the water and sewer fund. Major sources of revenue there. Metered water sales, $11.3 million. Sewer fees, $10.1 million. There's the grant revenue at $3.9. Tap fees at $4.1 million. Consolidated sewer at $1.2 million. Water tap fees at $1.3 million. And all of those revenues constitute 83.9% of the water and sewer fund. These are Water and sewer fund expenditures by type. Our debt service to the right there is 17%. Personnel's 12. Operations and maintenance at 22%. Depreciation expense is at 16, and that will continue to climb because the wastewater treatment plant at $36 million will start to be being depreciated. And we have 33% in capital expenditures. And these numbers are pretty consistent with prior year numbers. Now we're to looking at the debt service requirements by year in the water and sewer fund. You can see in 2024, it's $6.7 million. And in 2025, it drops dramatically to $3.4 million. That will free up some money for some more capital projects. And in 2027, it drops even further to $1.9 million. We're about to pay off most of our bonds, and we're now getting into where most of our debt's going to be the state revolving fund loans, which is low interest debt. And we anticipate adding another $3.3 million in additional debt this year through revolving state loans.
Rex, does the sale of water to other towns, is that included in the water services like Nolensville? Is that included in the water revenue, like the meter revenue? Is that in that same number?
Yes.
Okay. And do we know, Mike, I know Nolensville at one point was asking for an increase. Has that been increased or staying flat?
As far as their usage,
Yeah.
so Nolensville with their contract, we're still only giving them the same amount on their contract. We have not increased their contract because, we're looking into the future here and making sure that
that we're getting what we need
here,
first,
yes.
right? Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was asking, just to make sure that we hadn't increased it, and then we start looking at credits and,
That's correct, we have not.
Yeah.
Water and sewer fund, major capital projects. An I&I project, which means inflow and infiltration into the sewer system, at $3.2 million, and 75% of that is through the grant. A 1R lift station, which is our largest lift station in town. To refurbish that, upgrade it, is $2.7 million. Jefferson Pike Water, that's the balance that's due on the water lines that are extended down Jefferson Pike to 840. North Lowry Water Model at $1.7 million, and the Linwood project at $1.5 million. Infrastructure and improvements constitutes 92% of the capital projects in water and sewer, and 8% for equipment. Now to the general fund. We're recommending 10 new employees in the general fund. Fire 3, police department 4, IT department for 1. Those are full-time positions. Two non-full-time positions, which one is part-time, one seasonal, one in golf and one in parks. And that breakdown is 8 full-time, one part-time, and one seasonal. And the impact on that is $379,000. General fund summary. Looking at the 2024 recommended budget, it's $58.9 million. The operating expenditures at $47.6 million. Transfer to capital projects is a little over $10 million. And the transfer to the debt service fund to pay our debt is $1.2 million. And that gives us, we're budgeting a surplus of $37,421. That leaves us an ending fund balance of $32.6 million, which is very strong. That leaves us a ending fund balance to operating revenue of 55.33%. Our financial policies say that we need to try to achieve between 30 and 35%, so we're very good in that position. And we've been transferring some money to the capital projects for future projects.
Hey, Rex, one observation there too, if you go back to that slide, I think it's important for the council and the citizens to know, if you look at that ending fund balance, it's actually elevated to some degree over last year, not by a lot, but some, but the number on the percentage came down by almost 2%. That's kind of a mathematical thing, because as our budget grows, if you look at the top line, where we, 21, 22 was 53 million, now we're at 58.9. It's a dilution of the percentage based on the division of the dollars. Does that make sense? So we're keeping a good fund balance. It's just, as our budget grows on the top side, that when you do the percentage, it brings it down a little bit. But we're very cautious to make sure that we're not getting down into that fund balance. But I don't want y'all to think, when you look and see from 59 to 55%, we lost 4%. We really didn't. It's the math on the overall budget.
We understand, but it doesn't make sense for what does in this world today.
Well, it's just a bigger number we're dividing by.
Right. I appreciate you pointing that out. I mean, I think it's important, the percentage, obviously it looks like a 2% loss each year percentage-wise in the fund balance, but the reality is we're 20 to 25% higher than we are required to be, which means we're healthy. And honestly, I would rather try to stay flat or down 1 or 2% rather than continuing to creep up, because that just means we're holding money longer than maybe we need to. So I appreciate the way it's kind of, the trend is actually what I think we want.
But if we can't go, we can't do that 10 years in a row.
That's right.
At that point, we're at 30% or so.
Right.
We keep doing that.
Yep.
General fund, top 10 sources of revenue. Local sales tax is 21.5 million. Property taxes, 14.2. State sales tax at 5.6. In lieu of taxes, 2.5. And you can see local sales tax, state sales tax is a big number. Property taxes in lieu of taxes based off land value, property tax. Those numbers kind of staying growing pretty steadily, and we're really glad that people are shopping local, keeping their money here in town, and it shows off.
That goes directly to that fund balance number we were just talking about, right? It's the fortunate that these numbers are good, that allows us to send more revenue to these capital projects and use actual cash and not credit or debt, right? So,
Yes.
So that's this part right here, the shop local that HG likes to tout for us. That's the part that really helps us the most and keeps that fund balance level.
Why does in lieu of taxes fluctuate?
Why does it? People rolling on and people rolling off.
Okay. I didn't think we had that many that were.
We really don't, but it's,
There was a significant change in the Nissan contract.
I was gonna say, we got Nissan in there and it changed, right?
Yeah, it changed.
Yeah.
and all those top 10 constitute 86.6% of all the revenues in the general fund. General fund revenues on the chart here, property tax at 24%, local sales tax 37%, other revenue 12%, state revenue 11%, and other local revenue 16%. Other local revenue is in lieu of taxes, wholesale beer tax, business taxes, hotel motel tax, cable TV, building permits, planning and codes fees, liquor taxes and fees. The other revenue at 12% is cemetery, golf, parks fees, event center, courts, probation, and support services.
State revenue, what does that consist of?
State shared taxes.
Okay. Just that, I mean?
Just that.
Okay, very good.
General fund operating expenditures by department, police at 31%, has the highest operating budget. Fire's number 2 at 25%, so that's 56% of the budget in those two departments. And, well, it should be. All the other numbers are pretty consistent with prior year. General fund expenditures by type, personnel 67%, debt service 2%. That's a really good number. Capital expenditures at 17% and operations and maintenance at 14%. General fund capital projects of interest, most of these are the high dollar, but I did put some park stuff in there because more people like to see what's going on in the parks. Jeannie Lane Extension at $2.8 million. Rocky Fork Almaville right-of-way, we got $1.1 million in there. Spring Hill Drive Extension, $1.1 million. Sam Ridley at Old Nashville Highway intersection at $3.9 million. 80% of that's a grant. Cedarstone Tennis and Pickleball Courts, $1.2 million, and 50% of that is a grant. Lee Victory Park restrooms, we're finishing up that project, the $30,000. Cedarstone restrooms, $300,000. Gregory Mill Playground at $75,000. Jefferson Pike Fire Station, $6.5 million. And a fire quint apparatus at $1.5 million. Capital projects by function, infrastructure and improvements at 52%, building and facility improvements at 36%, and equipment at 12%. We always like to put this slide up there. Health, welfare, and culture, sometimes a lot of people call this the nonprofits. We have no new participants in this. The only numbers that really changed was the Linebaugh Library operating budget increased to $416,950, and Child Advocacy Center is budgeted at $24,000. General fund debt service requirements. A lot of people ask me from time to time because the debt service fund just shows the annual debt service for the current year. This is the outstanding debt of the town related to the general fund. The total of it is $18.6 million. And you can see as you go across the rows there that between 2024 and 2025, we take a substantial dip in what we have to be paying out. And that just frees up money for other expenditures to pay with cash, or really puts us in a prime position if we have to go back to the bond market.
Does that drop because we're,
Paying down.
the principal's smaller?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And there's no new debt that's anticipated this year in the general fund. Now we're going to the 5-year capital project update. A couple of years ago, we all sat around and prioritized some projects. The first one was the road improvements west of I-24, construct a new fire station, and additional improvements to the Cedarstone Park. Road improvements west of I-24 that were completed. 1 mile lane on Amelville Road traffic light. Amelville Road corridor study. Walden Road interchange and traffic light. Road improvements to Gwynn Farms. Maintenance on Rock Springs Road. And the thoroughfare plan for McEwen Lane. Continued improvements for Rocky Fork Amelville Road. We got $1.1 million in there for right-of-way purchase. And improvements to Lee Road and Cooks Lane is still in the 5-year plan. And improvements to Rock Springs Road is still in the 5-year plan. Construct a new fire station. This is a drawing of what the new fire station is going to look like out on Jefferson Pike. And here's some of the money that we'll be spending to build the fire hall and put the apparatus there. The building is $12.5 million. $7.3 million of that is ARPA funds that we've received that we haven't spent since premium pay. So we'll spend that first, and then we'll dip into some more capital projects savings account. $440,000 in there for equipment and furnishings for the fire station located across from the library, and 2 quints, one out of the current year general fund surplus and fiscal year 2023, and quint number 2 out of the 2024 budget to be paid for out of impact fees. So there's $15.9 million that we're going to be spending over the next 2 years for public safety.
And the key there is we're spending it, there's no debt there, we're not borrowing that money.
Great point. Cedar Stone Park, Phase 2. Number 1, restrooms between the playground and the tennis and pickleball courts. In the 24 budget, we got $300,000 for that. Construction of the tennis and pickleball courts, 24 budget's got $1.2 million in there. 50% of that's grant. And the scope of Phase 2 in fiscal years 2025 and 2026 is 4 youth baseball fields, concession stand with restrooms, parking lot, a connector road, a walking trail, and an east playground, more restrooms, and parking lot and a shelter. We're really excited about Phase 2 at Cedar Stone. This is a draft document, and we anticipate some more changes possibly before we even do the first read, and more than likely, definitely before the second read. I want to thank the department heads and Brian Hercules, Todd Spearman, and Jeff Peach for their guidance, and a special thanks to Sierra Lowry and the finance department for all their work.
Questions for Rex? Rex, as council, we just want to thank you for all that you do. Brian, for you and the department heads. You all make it easy for each one of us. I know you put in long hours, and to be quite honest, I think the citizens of this community get a real bang for their buck in regards to what they pay in taxes and the services that are offered. And based on the retreat and based on the budget, I think we've got really exciting times ahead here in the town of Smyrna, and we're in a really great position fiscally. And I just appreciate all you do and all each one of you do to make that happen. So on behalf of myself and the council, we just want to say thank you. Council, any other questions or comments? We kind of dug into this pretty intensively at the retreat, and had quite a few questions, and Rex and Sierra did a great job in answering those, as well as the department heads. So anything else? Okay. Rex, the most important part, number 17, consideration of an ordinance adopting the property tax rate for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Our recommendation is for the tax rate to remain the same from as prior year at 52.57 cents on each $100 of assessed taxable property.
Anybody have any discussion or want to change that? No, I hope not. Good. Okay, then we will move to item 18, which is consideration of an ordinance amending municipal code Title 18, Chapter 4, relative to the cross-connection control.
I'm gonna play the walk-up music for Jason here and kind of give him an intro, so.
Ooh. So you're the opening act?
It's the opening act.
The opening
right.
act, okay,
Yep,
got it.
He's the headliner here.
Okay.
So with cross-connection control, that's basically testing of the backflow preventers. So the town does testing on some backflow preventers on domestic. There's about 1,800 and some odd backflows in our system, where we actually test somewhere a little north of 1,400 of those. But the backflow preventers on the fire lines, which there's about 440, are tested by private contractors. We've had some issues with getting the data in. The state does come in their sanitary survey and inspect this. This has been going on for several years, having trouble getting the data in. We got gigged a few points on the sanitary survey because we didn't have all the data, so worked with Jason and legal to amend the ordinance to put some teeth behind this thing where we can make sure to get all this stuff in and put some stuff in the fee schedule to match what Jason did in the ordinance. So I'll let him talk about the ordinance part and turn it over there unless you have any questions for me.
Questions for Mike? Okay. You're going to have to be really exciting since you're the.
Oh, yes. Such a build-up.
There you go.
Mike is such a showman. By the way, I love working with all the folks in town, but one of the things I've enjoyed learning about the most is our utilities. We have these utility companies, and where in the world would a lawyer learn about all the details of operating a utility company except working in municipal government? It's a great place. You have wonderful people. Mike's a great director. Mark Parker. Anytime I get to work with him, it's fantastic.
Jason, some of those other guys can teach you some other things too.
I agree. I learned a lot. I learn something every day. It's a great job. I love being a lawyer. It's a wonderful spot to get to work in all those areas.
Jeff Peach teaching any.
Have you learned anything from Hal yet?
Well, now, if I had some time to play golf, I'd get over there. But Jeff keeps me so busy, I just don't have any extra
Good
time.
answer.
He's never going to come back to another council meeting, ever.
Y'all, the point of the targeted amendments to our cross-connection ordinance are real simple, and I think you're going to get this concept right away. We're just giving our department the tools they need to get these inspections in where we don't conduct the inspections ourselves, right? So your choice is to really staff up and do all this stuff in-house where you've got backflow preventers that are covering fire flow, right, your fire sprinklers, and Mike mentioned there's over 500 of those customers. So we're requiring third-party inspections, and we're just amending this ordinance so that we can enforce that, right? So you'll see page 60 right there, section 401 is your definitions. First, by the way, I'll reiterate something Jeff said earlier. I don't know why the red line did not make it in your PDF packet, so I apologize, but I placed a hard copy at each of your locations, okay? And it just says chapter 4 of our code, title 18 of the code, cross connection control. So you should have a physical copy there at your place, and if not, please let me know, because I'm just going to go right through page by page real quick. So there's not a ton of this, but I'm just going to walk you through it real quick. So there on page 60, you're in Section 401, we're adding a definition here. What is a third-party inspector? You'll see that in a red line. Just a person who's not employed or contracted by the town, who possesses a valid certification from TDEC and for inspection and testing of backflow preventers, okay? So we're sticking that, and we're going to refer to that definition later. So moving on to page 61 under subsection 4 there regarding the inspections. This is a key provision where basically it just says the director shall inspect all properties served by the public water supply where there are cross connections, okay? And so we're jumping in there and saying, provided that any property that's served by a fire sprinkler system, right, because our folks aren't going to inspect everything, like we've said, where there's a fire sprinkler system involved, shall be inspected and tested by a third-party inspector as further provided by this chapter, okay? So the rest of these provisions, these revisions are going to kind of serve that purpose, okay? Jumping down to C, you'll see that red line under subsection 4, C. Each backflow prevention device that serves a fire sprinkler system shall be inspected and tested by a third-party inspector at least once annually, thus in keeping with the TDEC requirement that Mike mentioned. A report of the inspection and testing shall state the date on which the inspection and testing occurred, shall be submitted to the director upon completion, and the report has to identify the name, address, and the credentials of the person who conducted the inspection and testing. And if there are any other legal requirements that occur in Tennessee code, obviously they'd have to comply with that as well. Now let's get to some violations, corrections of violations there in 5. So we're just kind of going in there and making a note that we've got some time requirements of our own that we're adding, and we're going to flip down, go over to page 63. We're amending here to say that where expeditious steps need to be taken to disconnect the public water system from potential contaminants, that's as determined by the director or as otherwise provided in this chapter. And so really the teeth are at the very end. So we're kind of, in a way, building up to that and including some of this language in here is to kind of set up so that we can have our teeth at the end with some fees and such. There is a right to a due process hearing, but that's not going to delay our ability to have the backflow preventer disconnected from the public water supply where necessary. So flip on over, if you would, a few pages here. Go on to 67, if you would. We're in subsection 406. Now getting really to the real teeth of what we're hoping to implement here. Fees is the heading there. So we've got really just broken it down into 2 sections. We already had the idea that testing and inspection is done in part by our department, right? And so we're really not having a lot of trouble there. And so we're just going in here to amend and specify that where there is a failure or a deficiency, we've got some time requirements here that our customers have to comply with. And again, this isn't fire sprinkler. This is our domestic customers. If it's not corrected within 30 calendar days of written notification, so wherever there's a violation, they got 30 days. They get a notice. Then if they don't correct, they're going to get a fee. Okay, and that's in your that's going to be in the fee schedule in the budget. And then they have to. That's of course evaluated annually by council in the budget amendment. The budget ordinance, and then repeated violations under C are going to be tacked on each 30-day period. They're going to get a fee. Okay, so that's really what we did there. And then down now the really new stuff is with the fire flow protection involving backflow preventers there, and over to page 68. 2, for each backflow prevention device that serves a fire sprinkler system, which shall be inspected and tested by a third-party inspector at least once annually, as provided. What we're imposing here is, first of all, no penalties assessed if inspection and testing results are delivered in a timely fashion to the director, okay? So again, that's once annually, and this is on a rolling basis, okay? So if you were inspected in July the previous year, you've got your 12 months. And if you're in September, then you're going to submit by the next September, that kind of thing.
For a third-party inspector to be required?
Well, first, I think, and I don't want to speak too much for Mike, but I think part of it's personnel to be able to get to all these fire sprinkler customers.
Okay, so it's just somebody we sub it out to then?
Well,
okay.
and this is not us subbing it out, right? Okay. So the customer is going to have it hired to be done, and I believe that's really pretty expensive, $50, maybe $75 to have it done.
HG in Murfreesboro? I have to hire somebody to come in to check my backflow every year, and then they have to submit the paperwork to the city for the city to have, and I have to do it on not just my fire sprinkler, but all of my backflows,
Right,
so.
right.
And they give us they send us a list. Are we sending out a list of approved
And you've got one
vendors?
for each meter on your building, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our folks have, obviously, the requisite qualifications to do backflow preventer inspections and so forth, and so anybody they hire, they've got to have those credentials under TDEC, so. Now, if the results have not been received by the town before the 30 days, you know, after this annual deadline, then they're going to get a fee, okay? And then that's in the budget ordinance and reviewed annually, right? But that fee is going to be added to the water bill, okay? It's going to be added to the monthly water bill. And then under C, if they go 60 days, calendar days after the annual deadline, there's going to be an additional fee, but it's going to go up. I think we've got it graduated. I think we started out at $250 for the 30-day violation and $500 for the 60. But in addition there on that, after that 60 days goes by from their annual deadline, water service to the affected site will be disconnected, okay? And that's until the required inspection documentation has been received by the director. A lot of the problem, as I understand it, is a lot of folks are having their inspections done, but they just are kind of not turning it in. I don't know what the assumption is out there, but we got to have the record. TDEC doesn't care. They say, hey, well, has this been inspected? You say, well, yeah, well, you can prove it, right? So we got to have the record in. And so hopefully it's just encourage folks to, you know, turn their stuff in, you know, not a big onerous requirement. You just need it done.
There's a separate backflow preventer for fire prevention and for potable water, is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Now,
See, I know more about utilities than I wanted to.
Yeah,
also.
right? I'm sure you know quite a bit more than I do at this point in time, HG.
It's because he's older.
He's been here forever.
And then in D, of course, town council's going to set the necessary fees with their budget ordinance there is all we're saying there at the end. Some of this language there in this last part was already there, ended up marked out all over on the red line because I had to just kind of rearrange some of it. But and then the final portion there in 407 on page 69 is just kind of qualifying here, making some space in the existing language for what we did above, is all that's doing there. So just kind of fitting into the existing ordinance, this idea of having fees that we can hold people to encourage them to get their documentation turned in on their fire sprinkler system so their backflow prevention devices are safe, and we're abiding by the requirements of TDEC.
So the set fee schedule, we don't have it in place yet. We're going to vote on it as a part of
It
this
should
new
be in
budget.
this budget amendment, this budget
Okay.
ordinance today, yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, we will put that on the agenda. Thanks for the hard work on this.
Thank you all, Mayor and Council, appreciate it.
Okay. We're ready for item 19, discussion concerning proposed changes to the board and committee terms. This is something that I asked Jeff to work on based on having so many more people wanting to serve on our boards and committees and having some term limits for certain boards. So I think Jeff and his team have worked really hard in putting something together for us to look at and have some discussion about. So Jeff?
Yes, Mayor. Probably be easiest, the document that starts with board terms on council workshop, if you want to look at that, instead of the entire packet there. As you see first, it lists the, basically, ordinance created or otherwise boards that we have the ability very easily just to change to the 3 years with a 2-term limit. Outside of, all of them will have the caveat of if you cannot find someone else qualified, that you can reappoint that person. On the second page, as you'll see near the end, I have Planning Commission on there, just because I had a kind of wanted to bring it to you that you're able to do, if you wanted to change the year terms. However, because of some of the specificity and knowledge that gets on the Planning Commission, I don't know if I would recommend changing that to have term limits. And you may find it to be helpful with 2 years remaining on that as well, but you can change it to 3 years if you'd like. And then on the third page, we discussed that last time, but these boards are either created by statute or articles of incorporation that deal with the number of years, so we would not be changing those. And as you can see in the papers you have before you on Title II, and I can go through each one if you'd like, or you can kind of study it now that you have it in hand prior to the next meeting. If you like, I'll do whatever you like. But you're going to see that the language is inserted just to make what I just spoke of, to make each board 3-year terms and a maximum of 2 terms outside of if no other qualified candidate is available. And so that's the general, and it applies to the citizen members, so we call that out, would not apply to council members, obviously, on those boards.
And Jeff, I'm in agreement with Planning Commission. I think it needs to stay appointed 2 years with no term limit because of the knowledge it does take. And then the ones on the back, 3 years, no term limit. You and I had quite a bit of discussion about if we move to this, what is the easiest way to make sure? So can we talk a little bit
Sure.
about, but first of all, is everybody okay with 3-year terms, 2-term limit?
So last time we discussed not including Planning Commission, so are we including them or no?
No, they'd stay 2-year terms with no term limit.
That's just my recommendation is not to change it.
Okay.
But I brought it to you just to see if the council had any idea or any appetite to change it.
So, Mayor, what's your, why are you wanting 2 years instead of 3 on that? Because I feel like it takes a little while to get acclimated to that one also. So 3 years would give a good foundation for someone who's been appointed on there, you know, and didn't have the background to get started with. But I'm just trying to understand why you're with 2 and your recommendation for 2.
Right, I think the bigger issue was not having the term limits on planning. I don't think that
Correct.
the issue is so much whether you want to do 2 or 3, although I need to know that.
Right.
I think the issue was keeping some of that experience on there because
Yeah.
of,
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of see where she's going.
just like
It
board
might
zoning
be-
appeals.
It might be more beneficial to change it to 3 because that way the term still matches all of our other boards. We just don't have the term limits.
Well, I also want you to think about it this way too, and I don't mean this bad. Sometimes you don't know if somebody's gonna pick something up on the Planning Commission, and I feel like if in 2 years they've not picked it up, and we know that they've not picked it up, they're probably not gonna get it by the 3rd year. And so I just feel like having 2-year term limits, and I mean, I know it is the mayor's discretion, to appoint or not
That's what I was
appoint
gonna
them.
say. I mean, as far as state statute goes, it doesn't really matter. It's
Right.
all
But
those powers
I
empowered in the
do
mayor.
think every 2 years they have to reapply, and then if they're not cutting it, it kind of gives the ability to
Easier transition.
find another board for them that might be better suited. Because there's some people that it's just, the planning commission is just a tough board. So, yeah, so,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
No, I'm in total agreement, because we've been in those situations, and, you know, folks have tried and just didn't work out, and a lot of times they get there and it doesn't work out for them.
And sometimes
as well.
they know it and say they
And
want
they-
off, but I think if that second year, they're kind of getting their feet wet, they understand what's going on, then they can be appointed for another term.
Right.
So,
So the shorter term works better for getting acclimated. Okay.
I don't know if getting acclimated, but if they're not there, we don't think they're there to,
Okay.
for them to choose, for us to choose another board that they may be better on.
Okay.
You were going to say something, I could tell.
Well, I just, what does the state statute refer to as far as the time?
That-
Leaves it up to local authority?
Yes, if this body can choose it.
Yeah.
Concerns at all on any of the other ones for 3 years? And then, 2 term limits? Everybody okay with that?
And so you asked me about implementation.
Yes, let's
and
talk a
so
little bit about implementation.
It's the easiest and simplest way, without having to add tons of language to your ordinances, is allow those terms that are currently in the process, once they end, so basically beyond this year, I think some of them has 24, but let everyone finish whatever term they're in, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 4 years, and from there on out, it's 3-year terms. And if you do that, they're staggered so that you're not going to run into an issue mathematically with too many people being appointed at one time.
Is that clear as mud?
It's kind of what we did with Sister City.
It is.
It's kind of the same thing, so.
So the ones we appointed this year will have 2-year or 3-year terms?
Well, the ones that you appointed this year, they'll have the term that you appointed them to, whoever they
That's
were.
what I figured, right.
The 3-year will not start until the next time you appoint to that board.
So in March? It'll
Correct.
start happening in March?
Right. If some come up in March.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay. Jeff, we appreciate the hard work you've put into this. I know that it took quite a bit for, bylaws and things that need to be changed. Just each board will vote on that after we
will go
after we
through
enact
those,
this.
and then if there's changes that need to be made with that, we'll bring those to you.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, item 20 is appointment of 1 member to the Beer Board to serve an unexpired term ending in 2025. Did we have somebody that?
We did. One of our new members, her hours at work changed, and she didn't think that they were gonna change that drastically. So she had to resign her position effective immediately. So, I spoke with Casey, and we'll add any kind of applications that we have. I think there were a few that had applied, not necessarily for the beer board, but for other boards that didn't get appointed.
Right.
So we may try to reach out to them and gauge interest on them sitting on the beer board. And then, of course, I think we're gonna work with Heather Bryan to get
We'll
on
get it
social media.
advertised. We do have a position
Great.
open now, so we
So-
can get applications.
Perfect. Okay, so we will put that on the agenda, and if we feel like we don't get enough between now and the next 2 weeks, then we'll keep it open. Otherwise, we'll fill it at our next meeting. Other.
Yes, Mayor, we do have one item under other that the mayor had asked us to bring forward. I had some communications with our police chief and with our legal team, Jeff and Jason. We've had several people calling in about loud vehicles, especially in some of the neighborhoods at different hours of the night and day and those kind of things. And I want to preface, one of the things that we have to deal with is just like litter. We know there's litter out there because we see it on the side of the road, but unless we see somebody throw it out of the car, it's hard for us to do anything about it. But we have come to an agreement, there are some things that we can do, and there are some applicable ordinances that control some of this noise, especially out of motor vehicles. So just to make you aware, ordinance number 15-119, causing unnecessary noise. It talks about racing of the motors and that kind of stuff to make, the loud popping noises that we hear out of some of these cars and that kind of stuff. Ordinance number 15-102, motor vehicle requirements. It's unlawful for a person to operate a motor vehicle within the corporate limits unless such vehicle is equipped with a properly operating muffler. And then it goes on to lights, brakes, horns, those kind of things. It is against the law to have straight pipes and those kind of things on vehicles. Ordinance number 11-401, anti-noise regulations, and it just talks about some of the noise, the intensity, duration, and those kind of things. And then there's also, under that same ordinance, under G is exhaust discharge of open air. The exhaust of any steam engine, stationary, combustible engine, motor vehicle, or boat engine except through a muffler or other device goes back into that straight pipes and those kind of things. So knowing that we've had quite a few concerns, knowing we've probably all experienced hearing some of these noises, We are bringing it forward to the police department. I'm happy to tell you they've already written some tickets in some neighborhoods that we had some complaints in. So we will be kind of watching for this as we do other things, and I think it was important that we let the community know that that is something that we're going to be watching for going forward, and it is a ticketable offense if registered, so.
Well, and I think it goes to quality of life. I mean, when you have a family member, I mean, when you have somebody that's sending me an email that at 5:30 in the morning, young kids are in the driveway revving up those mufflers that are those pop-in mufflers and waking up the family and the kids and all that, I think they get a little frustrated. And when they try to go over and have discussion with them and nothing happens. And so, again, I think it goes to quality of life. So, but
So,
I
Steve?
appreciate.
I don't know why she's looking at me. I don't have any of those popping mufflers.
You did, just put it in timing, wouldn't you?
I would.
No, he'd probably come to my driveway at 5:30 in the morning.
I just wanted to, my thought was you sounded really old. when
I
you were
know.
speaking.
I feel that way. I feel that way.
Those popping mufflers.
Poplin mufflers. Well, that's exactly how the citizens that have been calling me have described it in their neighborhoods.
I can
And so-
tell you, and I don't know if it's just because it's TCAT and there's a big parking lot or what, but I hear them quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly what they're talking about, and it seems like over that section of roads by TCAT where, not as much traffic, especially in the evening at night. Maybe when I was younger, I might have raced cars around
Like on
town.
Sam Ridley?
Yeah, so it sounds like that might be the new spot.
There you go. Well, we appreciate you all looking into this. So, anything else under other?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Amber, or directors, department heads, anything?
Kevin's got something.
Oh,
Mr. Hercules had asked me to do a quick, I will try to make it quick, so I know it's getting a little late and people are getting hungry and wanting to go watch the draft. But,
Including him.
including me, absolutely. But he did ask me to put together a quick presentation on our Rocky Fork McEwen corridor study. This is I have shortened it from, our consultant Kimberly Horn actually put this together for all the partners that were on this project to be able to present to community groups and that sort of thing. But so, this is a project that I know that you all are well aware of. We have, as of this week, got the final report, and so we have finalized this. The study is completed now, and so I did want to make this quick presentation to you regarding it. This was something we put together because of the need that we saw. Rutherford and Williamson counties are the two fastest growing counties in the state, and that's projected to continue, and we all know that. There's not an east-west connection without going into Davidson County to Old Hickory Boulevard Bell Road or going down to Highway 96. And so this provides another connection between the I-24 at Rocky Fork Road, Enid Springs Road, and then I-65 and McEwen Drive in Franklin. So we had some objectives for this. One, look at every alternative. We had a beginning point and ending point with no preconceived notions as to what would happen in between. And so that was the first phase of this. And then we went to coming to a consensus on a preferred alignment, then preserving that right of way once that alignment is decided, and then to begin that project development process, which is obviously the actual funding and design and NEPA and all those steps that you have to go through. I do want to emphasize, as you all are well aware, but I do want it for the public, this was something that the town of Smyrna initiated and the town of Smyrna got going, but it was something that was certainly a joint project funded by the town of Smyrna as well as Nolensville, Brentwood, Franklin, Williamson County, and Rutherford County. And so all of those folks were very much involved as we went through this process with our steering committee. Every meeting we had representation from all those partners.
GNRC also was involved. They were not a financial contributor on this study, but they were very much involved, participated in the steering committee more as an observer and making sure they were in the loop, but not so much, they didn't make any decisions or guide us in certain ways as far as what particular route to take or that sort of thing. But they were certainly involved, and that was an important partner as well on this project. This is a very busy slide. Has about 7 different alternatives. That was the first go at it. Some of those segments are in multiple different routes. But that again, that kind of shows that we did look north to south, east to west for every potential route. Again, we had the beginning point and ending point, but everything in between was up for discussion. This slide shows the 3 alternatives that we looked at and did a deeper dive on. There's 3 alternatives. It really was 2 set to 2 because on the Rutherford County side, there's really 2 options. And on the Williamson County side, there's 2 options. Ultimately, there's 3 different ways those connections can get made, but really that's how we looked at. And so we did a deeper dive on this for analysis. We looked at the environmental impacts, wetlands and floodplains and historic resources. Again, not a NEPA study by any stretch of the imagination, but at least a 30,000 foot level looking at those things. Certainly topography was something we looked at, as that's a big challenge in this area. Right-of-way and parcel impacts, just looking at how many parcels we would actually be impacting and how much right-of-way would have to be purchased with the various routes. Community impacts, such as schools and parks and those kind of community assets to try to, didn't want to impact those. And then mobility impacts, meaning, look at model travel time between as far as how many potential signals would you have and those kind of things, and school zones and all those types of things that might affect how long it would take to get from point A to point B. And what we came up with is really any of those alternatives, these 3, there were really no what we would call fatal flaws that would completely eliminate them as an option, and each one kind of had their positives and negatives. And so ultimately, what we looked at at least on the Rutherford County side, we chose option A, which was largely the existing Rocky Fork Road and Rocky Fork Allenville Road, with some certainly coming off of that alignment in certain locations with certain curves and intersections that we wanted to correct and straighten out. Once you got into Williamson County, there was a lot of discussion, quite a bit, primarily between Nolensville and Williamson County government. Brentwood and Franklin had pretty much had a route already established that they were really looking at as far as the McEwen Drive coming east. And so at our last steering committee, not the last steering committee, but we had a steering committee in September, I believe, and it was pretty clear that Brentwood and Franklin was okay on one end, Smyrna and Rutherford County was good on one end, but Nolensville and Williamson County could not come to an agreement. And so we basically just said, you guys get together and come up with what you want to do. And so that ended up taking several months, a lot longer than we were hoping. We'll give Kimley Horn a lot of kudos. That was our consultant on this project. Kevin Tilbury and Doug Delaney and that whole team did a really good job. It was hurting a lot of cats, but they did a really good job getting everything to this point. So ultimately what ended up happening is essentially Nolensville and Williamson County kind of said, we got a couple options we want to think, and we're going to try to look at 2 and then decide later on which one we want to pick. Heard just this week, I think they finally actually did pick one of these 2, but our study does show both of these options. So that's the corridor study actually kind of diverts a little bit in the middle. We did discuss, is that going to be an issue for us moving forward? And at the time, everyone says, and GNRC said, no, that's not an issue to move forward with a project that has options. Certainly, you're going to be looking, even when you get into NEPA and all, you may end up tweaking this route, those kind of things as things go. So
So which one do you think they went with? Do you know?
They went with the northern route, using York Road.
The direct route?
Which is, I thought was the best route, but they wanted to, it does go through a school zone and some things through there. They were looking at avoiding.
Nolensville High School and middle school's right there.
Yeah, basically, it's basically it's just that area between, basically the county line and Nolensville Road was really where they had a lot of heartburn and trying to figure out what to do, so.
Is it less elevation changes also?
There is, and uses more of the existing right-of-way. Really, we tried ended up trying as much as possible to use some existing right-of-way. Obviously, that's from a cost standpoint, is cheaper, as well as you disturb and you're bothering fewer property owners. You're not going across people's farms as much and that sort of thing, so.
I'm assuming that, the plan is to eliminate, I mean, this map still shows, some pretty significant turns. I'm assuming the plan is to kind of straighten those out as much as we can, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of this is actually surely would be straighter. It would be, as you get down to actual design, obviously you're going to have to soften those curves as much as possible, but it's certainly.
Yeah, because if you look at this, there is a lot of the road that it's following, the existing road that it's following, which would involve, in some cases 90-degree turns, right? So
Right.
That's the point, is that, when you soften those out, then it becomes a drivable highway,
Correct.
basically.
Right, yeah, we're not looking at having a lot of stop signs and right turns on this road. We want it to be a continuous roadway. Kind of our next steps, again, since we have finalized that, is to get the corridor agreement put together, which will be all 6 jurisdictions would sign and kind of all officially approving this corridor. Will help us as we move forward to go to TDOT all together as one, to the MPO, that sort of thing, to get funding and to move the project forward. Local plan amendments, each jurisdiction will need to add this to our local plan. It is my intention to have this on the Planning Commission agenda. We have requested money. We don't have it yet. You all haven't approved the budget yet. We have requested money in the budget for next year to update our thoroughfare plan and bike ped plan. It'll be, this year will be 6 years since we did that. So I'm not going to wait for that process to go put this on our plan. So my intention is to have this on our Planning Commission agenda for June to go ahead and adopt that into our thoroughfare plan. Ahead of those changes.
How long are you seeing this process right here?
Well, the local plan amendments would be pretty quickly. The agreement and resolution, but that may take 2 or 3 months, because we have to put it, obviously it's got to be on everybody's agendas and everybody's got to vote on it.
Who's actually gonna write, will that be us writing it or will Kimberly Horn?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got, working with Kimberly Horn on that, but actually City of Franklin had one that they had done with someone, I can't remember exactly. So I've got some models to go by on that. So I'll be working on that primarily with Kimberly Horn as well, to put that together. The Regional Transportation Plan Amendment, it's in the Transportation Plan currently as an illustrative project, which basically means we think it's a good idea, but we're not putting any money on it. And so with the MPO, and so that's kind of our next step, obviously, is to try to get, once we get, I think, and that will help us if all 6 jurisdictions are together. I think we got a good chance. And working with the MPO, I think we have a good chance to start getting into the process. Obviously, it'll end up probably be several phases and all those kind of things, but I do think we do have a good chance of that. As far as how long that'll take, it'll take a little while because it just takes time. Nothing happens quickly. Do want to point out, this is my last slide, so everybody can cheer now. We do have the full report if anybody wants to read it. It's about 85 pages. It's on our website. I put it out there for the community to see as well.
Can you send us a link?
Sure.
If you'll just email us a link,
We'll
that'd be
absolutely
great.
do that. But, we have put that out there. If anyone wants to read the full report and see all the details of what we just went over quickly tonight. So, and that's what I have. Mayor and Council, I want to add a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Kevin for, he has carried the water on this project. We started this process 18 months ago or better. And he used the term herding cats, getting 6 jurisdictions to the table and talk about, doing a joint project of this magnitude, to help the community understand, the first phase of this report helps us protect that property. If you think about years ago, Sam Ridley Parkway probably would have been the natural design to go over to the Franklin area. And what's happened is out in the county, both Williamson County and Rutherford County, there's been subdivisions built that have blocked that route now. So the first phase of this is really about protecting that property to keep that from happening so that long-term this is not a road that we're going to see built in the next 3 years, 4 years. This is going to be a long-term. I know Franklin and Brentwood they've been kind of biting their side of this pie for a little, a mile a year for the last couple of years. With what we see with the extension of Enon Springs West, and then as we go to the other side of the interstate, we had a development come in and you guys had the foresight to protect the right-of-way in that development. And those are the kind of things that are going to happen. But the end result is down the road, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe 10 years from now, what this gives us the privilege of having is that connector between Franklin over to Smyrna that would be similar to a Bell Road type connector that you see coming out of Antioch into Brentwood right now. This will develop not only from the road standpoint, but also from an economic development standpoint. You're going to be able to see, mixed use from residential to, when you get to some of the major thoroughfares, like if you think again going down Bell Road, when you get to Nolensville now, you've got a commercial node, those kind of things. And that's the type of vision that we wanted to put down on paper and make sure that we had a vision long-term. Because if this connector doesn't happen, honestly, there's not another opportunity. You'll be back down to 840 by then. So, this has been a really tough project. It's been a good project. There's been a lot of people involved across the jurisdictions. GNRC has been very active with us. And I'll tell you, TDOT, they've been very aware of this project as we go. And our desire will be that the MPO and TDOT puts this on their thoroughfare plan, not just on ours, to make sure that this property is protected for this road. But I want to say, Kevin has done a great job of keeping this project active. He said earlier, Smyrna kind of took the lead on this. And that's the wishes of this council. We've talked about it many times. And to get it this close to the finish line has been a pretty impressive project to do in the last 18 months. And Kevin, I appreciate all the work you've done.
Also want to give kudos to the mayors from those other communities, because at the MPO meetings, when we went to them and said, would you be willing to do this? And would you step up and provide some money? They were all in. And so, Kevin, I know you and your counterparts in each one of these communities have been the ones that have done all the hard work. So we appreciate it. But for those in the community, this is another step in getting an interchange at Rocky Fork Road. And so that's why we've been pushing so hard for this, is to ever see that happen. We had to show regional connectivity, and this will help us achieve that. Not that it has to be in place, but that we have to show it. So
At least it's planned for.
that's right.
Correct.
Questions for Kevin?
No, thanks, Kevin. Personnel changes, council members change, mayors change, and getting this agreement in place and getting this plan in place is really the most important step that we could take at this point. So I really appreciate it.
Anything else for Kevin?
Good job, Kevin. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks.
On
I
top of it.
think that's our sign that we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, that's the infamous 721 train.
That's right, the 7:21 train telling us it is time to finish this meeting. Miss Amber?
I'm good.
Good. Brian D.?
Mayor and Council, I do have a few things I'd like to share with you. I start out my comments with something that's just heartbreaking to have to share with this council, and I know all of you are aware of this, but just wanted to mention Braxton Harrell, Stacy Harrell with our fire department, who is just, I don't know how the man gets up every morning, to be completely honest with you, with the things that he's dealt with the passing of his wife Jerry, and now with the passing of Braxton. And I know there'll be a a service on, I think it's May the 5th at Northside Church there in Murfreesboro. But I know this family could definitely use our prayers and our support during this time. I know the chief has done a good job of keeping in touch with Stacy and the family and working with them on any needs they have. It's just heartbreaking. The young man fought a great fight, had the purest of hearts, and talking with Stacy a couple of times, I mean, Braxton knew where he was at. He was at peace with what was going to happen. So, just prayers for that family. Also, want to another one that we've all become very fond of is Janae Edmondson. I'll say it right in a minute. It was really exciting this week to see that MTSU Volleyball had reached out and provided her a scholarship to go to MTSU through the volleyball program. And her, I think, getting to stay closer to home with a scholarship is a huge win for that family, also for our community. So congratulations to Janae. Yesterday, I had a chance to go out at the Streets Department. We had an 18-year employee that worked at the Streets Department, Joe Sartina. We all know him as a sign man. He's done a great job of keeping our community up to date on our signage and stuff on our streets. But Joe has retired and will be moving on. And I know Tom's going to have a tough time backfilling that job and getting the right person in there, but I know we can do it. We mentioned we've gone over the budget tonight, and I want to thank each of the department heads, and especially Rex and Sierra. I cannot tell you how many hours it took to put this budget together. Jeff Craig working with us on the personnel issues and doing the studies on our salary structures, everything from the chiefs, making sure that we had all the equipment we needed in our public safety parks. Mike and your team, the utilities, those kind of things. I could go on, but I just personally want to say thank you for all the work you did. You made putting this budget together pretty easy from the standpoint of at the end of the day. In fact, I know last year one of the council members asked us, what did we take out? What did we cut that you guys wanted? I don't know that we cut much out of this budget this year. In fact, a couple of departments, we went back and added some stuff for them. So, I'm just proud to present this budget on behalf of the employees of the town to this council, and more importantly to this community. And we are working on quality of life on everything we do, and that was the flavor of this budget, is how does it affect the quality of life. So I'm very excited about that. I got a nice email on Officer Beverly that works in our police department. Most of you know Officer Beverly. Caleb Spearing, who some of us know as well, called me about a week ago, and he was at wit's end. There was a young man that showed up at his business that was a runaway. Had a very sad story to share. He called me and said, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And I got a hold of Chief Irvin. He sent Officer Beverly down there, and Caleb said that he was so impressed with the professionalism and the way Officer Beverly handled that situation, and we were able to get them some help. So I really appreciate all of our police department, but Officer Beverly for the work there. Some of you will remember this name, Kay Reynolds. Kay used to work for us here at the town of Smyrna. She sent me a real nice email, and this is one of those that, this department doesn't get a lot of attention sometimes, but they do a great job representing the town. But her church had an event at the town center, and she said, working on this side, sometimes you don't see those things, but on the other side, working with her church, she said the staff was friendly and accommodating, and the food was excellent, and just had a great experience with her church and wanted us to know that. So now on the board, I've got a couple of things I just wanted to mention. I don't know if any of you, I actually did not get to the park to meet this gentleman, but I actually saw him walking through town, this Road to Recovery, the muck run. This gentleman was doing a 35-mile march with a rucksack on to bring awareness to mental health, and I know he was at our park at Lee Victory Park. Mike, I don't know if you guys got a chance to go up there, but we do appreciate what he's doing, and we appreciate our Parks Department making him welcome as he came through town. Want to remind everybody, we've got some job openings, not only at the town of Smyrna, but we've got at our Parks Department in SOAC, summer camp counselor, over 18 years old. and I don't know why Mark or Mike thinks they have to be a hard worker, but we need a hard worker. Paddle adventure assistant, again, these are jobs that are over 18 years old. It's full-time, weekdays and some weekend hours on both of these. But you can go on the Town of Smyrna website and you can find these jobs in our system. Wanted to mention Bojangles. I know some of you, I looked at the pictures and several of you were able to go by. Bojangles reached out to me about 6 months ago and they wanted to do something for our first responders and they offered a free meal if they came by between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. I saw Donna this week. I told her, unfortunately, I was at TCMA during this event and I was not able to get down here. For that, I was at a conference with our 2 assistant town managers, but I went by and saw Donna yesterday and she was very appreciative of everybody that came by, and she said, the problem was we just didn't have enough. We needed more people. And I said, well, you know, we got as many as we could. It's hard sometimes when you got officers on different shifts or the fire department, you know, working on that 24 on and 48 off to get them to come in. But she said, we'd like to maybe make this a yearly event. I told her we'd be glad to work with her. I think about 85 people actually went through and had a meal. So really appreciate Bojangles and what they did to honor our first responders. This next one is somebody you recognize, I think. Congratulations to Miss Amber. The 40 Under 40 VIP magazine is out. I do understand she's selling black and white photos for $5 autographed and $10 for 8x10 color photos at the end of the meeting,
I've
right?
actually collected a stack of the magazines.
And you're selling those for $25?
Mhm.
Yeah, they're free anywhere else in town, but with an autograph, she'll have them for $25 in the lobby. But
I meant to take this slide out.
no,
I appreciate it.
no, congratulations. Very proud of you, Amber, and the work you do for the town, and it was a great honor to be recognized.
Thank you.
Next, Love Where You Live. That's kind of near and dear to my heart, but this last Friday, we had an Earth Day cleanup and had several volunteers. Here's some of our staff that was out there, and I think we had some other Boy Scout type volunteers to come out and help us. We had Lowry Street, the cemetery, and Sharp Springs Park were all part of our cleanup efforts, and everybody had a good time. And they wore the green shirts and their yellow vests and stayed safe. But the police department, admin, everybody was involved. So thank you all for taking the time to do a cleanup in our town. Next, last week was National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And I don't know if you've ever been down and visited with our telecommunicators during this week. They have a good time. If you'll notice, there's some different pictures. They had a dress-up day for their favorite ball teams to, I think they wore pajamas one day, all very tasteful, but they had a big time. And again, these are some people that do a lot of hard work. You just cannot imagine the stress that they work under when they're answering those phones, and many times, in fact, most times, it's when people are at their very highest need in their life, and these are those voices on the other end of the phone that bring a calm to those situations, and they're very much an important part of what we do in our first responder work, and we just thank them for everything they do on a daily basis, and they are there 24/7, 365. That phone does get answered. Speaking of our telecommunicators, I want to say congratulations to Claire Fultz, who was voted by her peers to be our dispatcher of the year. And Chief and his staff recognized her last week during Telecommunicators Week, so congratulations to Claire. Also, this past weekend, the Smyrna Police Department, working with a group out of Nashville, doing the drug take-back event. It was held here at our police department. I don't know how many pounds this time, but it's always very effective. And this was an opportunity for people to bring everything from illegal drugs, no questions asked, drop them off, to any old drugs that medications and stuff we may have in our homes that needed to be disposed of. It was a way to get rid of those and do it properly. So again, thank you to them. Also, the police department, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, did we have some people from fire that did a 9/11 job fair And I know the Smyrna Police Department was recognized, also working with Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, Laverne, and the manager down at our telecommunications, that slide's not up yet, but manager Jamie, oh, there it is, yeah. Was very active in arranging this and working through this, so we appreciate the work they did. Next, it's Mother's Day coming up, and it's an opportunity again for another great buffet at our town center. It'll be on that Sunday. There's first seating at 10:30 and second seating at 1. And you can call the town center and make reservations. It's $28.95, including tax, and children 6 to 12 years old is, I can't read it up there, it's too far away. $16.95, children under 5 are free. But the Mother's Day buffet is another great opportunity to get out and enjoy the town event center. So come down and get your reservations. Just call the town center and they can help you with those. Last thing I have, as I always do, is love where you live, folks. Continue to, monitor the trash on our streets. Nobody Trashes Tennessee is a great program that's getting a lot of traction. In fact, we have got some, the state has provided us some little ads and some different things that we're going to be utilizing. So you'll be seeing that on Channel 3 and also on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Maybe some of those little cute things will get everybody's attention. I did have a conversation with Tom Rose. I know our sign man just left us, but hopefully, I was in another community recently and saw some no littering signs, and I asked that we look at getting some of those deployed, especially on our major arteries. Maybe it'll be one of those things that people will see that sign and just think about it. If nothing else, it'll be a deterrent. So we'll be working on getting some of those out. So, Mayor and Council, that is all I have tonight. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Jeff? Raquel?
So a couple of announcements. Let's see which one's first. We are continuing to do the community survey. Well, nope, that's not the first one. My apologies. I wanted to thank Smyrna High School for having me out. About 2 weeks ago, they asked me to be the keynote speaker for their academic award ceremony. And so we have a picture of that with Assistant Principal Takayama from that event. So thank you, Smyrna High School. And then we are still in the process of taking or receiving the survey for the Arts Commission. So if you have not taken that survey, we are asking if you will please go on to the townofsmyrna.org website to complete the survey. It is in an effort to help us better understand Smyrna's cultural scene, build awareness of our cultural assets, and help us to strengthen, value, and utilize those assets more effectively. We also have a Hispanic version of that survey. So if you do know of any citizens Hispanic speaking and they want to participate, we do have a version of that for them to utilize as well. And this survey is still going to be going on through May the 15th. So if you know of anyone in the town who hasn't taken it, I would ask that you would either ask them to go onto the website or on one of our social media pages and look at taking that survey. And at the May the 25th council workshop, there will be a drawing for a $100 Visa card for anyone who has participated in the survey. Okay, and in addition to that, I'd like to extend my condolences to Stacey Harold and his family. I'd also like to say happy retirement to Joe and congratulations to Claire. And also, Rex, thank you, Rex, for the budget report this evening. I think it was very detailed and enlightening, and I hope that the citizens were able to get a good understanding of how our budget works annually. And thank you, Kevin, for the presentation on the Rocky Fork McEwen Connector. And I think that is all for me.
Great. HG?
Condolences to the Harrell family. Long ordeal. comes to a close, and best we can do is just pass along the prayers for the rest of the family. I also lost a very close friend yesterday. Craig Mosey passed away. He had been dealing with pancreatic cancer, and it was expected but unexpected. They thought he would last longer, so it was a little traumatic there for some of us. But also, good job on the budget, not just Rex, but the entire staff, all the employees, and we also have to pass along some good job to the citizens for shopping local. We saw what a large percentage of our budget comes from shopping local. And with that, just be kind.
Tim?
Yeah, I will add my condolences to Stacy and his family. Again, Rex, department heads, thanks for all the hard work on the budget. It's very much appreciated, especially when you're on this side of the desk. It makes it so much easier for us. I have a slide tonight. No, not that one. I wasn't there, but there we are. For whatever reason, myself, Todd, and Mark show up at food openings. If you look at that center picture there, we're modeling what your stomach may look like after you eat there. And it was hard to get our stomachs out that far, but we tried. But congratulations to the Southern Spoon on their grand opening. HG, you'll be happy to know this is one where we went from a food truck that they still operate, but they saw the value in Smyrna and also opened up a brick and mortar here. So congratulations to those folks for investing in Smyrna. Todd, thanks for your inspiration on this, and Heather, filters next time on the picture. Thank you.
Jerry?
Like everybody else has said, my condolences to the Harrell family as well. Just I can't imagine what Stacy and the family's gone through, but certainly our prayers are with them. Rex, your team did a great job, and we appreciate what you guys do all the time, and it certainly shows up, and we really appreciate it. And Kevin, same to you. We appreciate what you've done on this corridor study. That's been something we need, and I know you worked hard, and your team did, so I just want to say thank you to you guys. I also want to say, I know we talked about Whitman Chapel a little earlier, and that's a long time. And before Steve says anything, I was not around when they first opened up, so I knew Steve would probably want to say something. Friend of mine, Carl Boyd, is in the hospital. Been in there for quite some time now, and just wishing that he gets better and they can find out what's going on there. Also want to say congratulations to Jenny Williams, Ace Hardware. She's going to be retiring sometime in the near future, and that they have been there for a long time, and will still be there under different ownership, but I certainly want to say congratulations to them. And I do believe the other day, myself and Brian and Heather and Todd and let's see who else did I mean, and Brian had the opportunity and privilege to go to the ribbon cutting for PostNet. It's located out at where Publix is, off of Lee Victory Parkway out there close to Interstate. I think this is the third PostNet in the state of Tennessee, and if you need to send mail, if you need packaging materials, if you need copies, they've got it all there. So thank you for allowing us to come out, and we wish them the best in their new endeavors. And so that's all I've got, Mayor.
Great, Steve.
Just a couple things. Obviously, I want to add the condolences, my condolences as well to Stacy, and the unbearable, pain that I'm sure he must be feeling. So he's had a tough time, and I think HG said it best. The best we can do is just send prayers. So there was lots of lots of things tonight, so I'm not gonna rehash some of the others that that's already been mentioned. But, I do wanna say, Rex, thank you very much. Sierra, I know you're probably the woman behind the man in this case right here. But thank you very much for the work. I know that you guys put in a lot of effort. I think this might be one of the best budgets we've had. The key takeaways for me was, our fund balance initially basically stays about the same. We're funding a lot of key projects, and we're paying down our debt at the same time, all with no tax increase. And I think that says a lot about the effort and the work that the directors and their staff put into getting grants and finding creative ways to get things funded, as well as, people shopping local, and just fiscal responsibility that Rex, you've led over the years. So appreciate the position that y'all have put us in, and it really makes us look better than we are probably as a council, because you guys are really doing all the hard work. So appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Great. So a couple of housekeeping items. The 2023 event guide is now available. You can pick one up at Smyrna Parks and Recreation Office or at the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center. And you can visit our website to view the digital image. We were saddened to hear about the passing of Lieutenant Bob Hayes of the Laverne Police Department. Our prayers are with their family and with the Laverne Police Department. We got to celebrate Pat Lee's retirement with a proclamation honoring her 50th anniversary in real estate there at Action Homes. And so we want to wish Miss Pat the best. We want to invite everyone to join the Smyrna Fire Department, Smyrna Police Department, Smyrna Parks, and our friends at TriStar Stonecrest Medical Center, and so many other community partners on Saturday, May the 6th from 9 to 1 at the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center for our Kids Safety Day with free child safety awareness. This event includes inflatables, critter encounters, indoor rock climbing, and safety education for families. We look forward to seeing each one of you there. This was kind of exciting news that was put on Facebook. We can't wait to see Stewart Creek's band on the big screen. The marching band in the big parade scene are local bands from Stewart's Creek High School and Hendersonville High School. And they are in a film with Nicole Kidman, and the film is called Holland, Michigan, and is being shot in Clarksville. And the band uniforms from Stewart's Creek have SC on them, and they're pretending to be a band from Sagatock Creek, Michigan. The uniforms from Hendersonville have an H on them, and they're pretending to be a band from Holland, Michigan. And the band members are actually playing the music for the film using their own uniform and their own instruments. So I thought that was kind of cool. We want to give a shout out to Motlow State Community College and to Todd Spearman. The town of Smyrna personnel donated business professional clothing to Motlow State's Bucks Closet. Todd Spearman led the successful drive, and we got to go out and present the things that were donated from the employees to the Bucks Closet, and they were so appreciative of the items. You know, there's so many individuals, so many young kids that go out on job interviews and don't have appropriate attire. And so hopefully it looks like a store. You go in and everything's kind of divided out. But I mean, they need everything from shoes to ties to, I think they had some jewelry in there. I mean, everything you would need to go out on a job interview. So, Todd, I'm glad that you suggested that and that the town was able to get behind that. Also want to announce tomorrow the Child Advocacy Walk will take place at, the opening ceremony is 11:30, and at 12 o'clock there'll be a walk from the Murfreesboro Civic Plaza to Oaklands Park, and then there will be lunch served from 12:30 to 1:30. So if you're not doing anything, would love to have you out for the Child Advocacy Walk. Last but not least, I also would like to pass along condolences to Stacy and to Savannah. You know, they've had a tough road over the last couple of years. I actually was Jerry's babysitter. That was Braxton's mama growing up. And so I know their family pretty well, and Brenda and Tony and all of them. My heart just aches for them. I can't imagine what they're trying to deal with right now. So we'll continue to lift them up in our prayers, not only today, but in days to come. And I'm sure good thoughts and a helping hand when we see Stacy would be appreciated. So, council, is there anything else? If nothing else, at 7:47, we are adjourned.